Hi there, this is Andrew Lucchese.
And this is Darren Kwong.
We're the Quantitative Reasoning Fellows at Hostos Community College, and we're recording this video to give you all some ideas about Social Explorer, which is an online tool for making data visualizations and maps using social demographic data. It's a tool created here in CUNY, and it offers a interactive experience for students to work with quantitative data. This video is going to be a basic walkthrough of the tool. Darren and I are going to show you some of the features that make it useful and give you some ideas for how it might be usable in a classroom setting from a lot of different disciplines. At the end, you'll be able to leave comments or drop an email to us, and we'd be really happy to keep the conversation going. Okay, so we're going to start you off with the basics. Here we are at Social Explorer's page. You can see that I've logged in. You can log in and get an account for free as long as you have a cuny.edu email address. So it's free for students and for instructors. I'm going to start by just creating a new project. And I'm going to call this Test Project 2. The way I'm going to show you around is by simply showing you a basic way that the interface displays data. So I'm going to skip the tour, and when you do it, feel free to go through the tour. It shows you the basic features of what you're looking at.
It's a fast one, and it's pretty helpful, actually.
Absolutely. But we're going to show you all the basic features. So you see the United States right here. It starts us off by showing the population density per square mile, and it's showing it by intensity of color. So you can see where there's most density and least. I'm going to zoom us in, and I'm going to take us to the Hostos neighborhood at 500 Grand Concourse. Ooh. There it is. Okay. You can see that it previews the search. Okay, so here we see population density a little closer. When I picked that level, it moved us in terms of the zoom of the map and the scale to look at the census tract. It sets that automatically based on how closely you're zoomed in, but you can set it at a different scale if you want to. So we could do it by county instead, and you see that the density is different. Let's zoom out. You see that there's a zoom bar here. So now it's doing it in a much different scale. Again, depends on what you're looking for, how you want to do that. But let's pick something a bit different. I'm going to create a different kind of visualization. So I picked change data up here, and it offers us different categories of data that we can look at. Race, housing, income, veteran status, all sorts of things that you can decide to look for. It also offers us different times throughout history that you can look at this data. And depending on the time you pick, they're going to have different kinds of data.
Right.
So all of this data is gathered from surveys. The different censuses that are done, as well as just different research. And you can take a look at how the data was gathered. Most times that won't be super necessary, but it's something that's interesting and useful about it. So let's say that for our first one, we wanted to look at, let's stay in the year 2010. We're fine with that. What did we want to look for?
I think education?
Yeah, let's
take a look
try
at
that.
Education. Why not?
Education. Let's see how education's distributed. And we can look at that a bunch of different ways. But let's say bachelor's degree or more. So population under 25 years old who have a bachelor's degree or more. Let's look at that. Right now we're still in county, so that's not useful, right? So let's set it back to auto. And it moved us directly to census tract. And you can see now it's a density reporting on how many how many people over 25 have a bachelor's degree or more. We see high concentrations in these tracts and low concentrations in these ones. And you see that as we track through, it highlights the district that we're looking at. let's say we don't like these colors. You can click up here at the scale. You can mess around with how you want it displayed in terms of color, where you want the cutoff points in terms of changing the color. You can flip the colors directly, but I want something blue.
It's a little calmer.
Yeah, right? Less alarming.
It is.
All right, so this is how you make a basic map. As you saw, we could have done any sort of data. We could have set it up at different scales. We can zoom in or out. But this is sort of the basic interface for putting together a data visualization map. Would you like to show them how to do some of the more interesting comparison stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So right now we've been able to create one map. So let's, I guess, go ahead and create a comparison between our neighborhood around Hostos and Baltimore City Community College. So down the bottom, there's that button right there, change map layout. If we click on that, there are two options, side by side and swipe. We'll stick with side by side first, and then we'll go to swipe once we've graduated from that. So side by side. So right now we've got our map kind of duplicated. Let's say on the right hand side, over here by the address and geography, let's type in the address for Baltimore City Community College. We kind of looked that up beforehand, and that was 710 East Lombard Street.
Is it? What did I do wrong? 710. I inverted.
So yeah.
That's...
What happened? What if we take out the comma and Baltimore and the Baltimore and type out street maybe?
Best laid plans, right? Always go a little wrong.
Oh, there it is.
There it is. All right. So sometimes it needs some cajoling. Probably if we'd put in the zip code, it would have gone a little faster.
That's true.
All right. So here we are.
So here we are, right? And so, as you can see, we've got two awesome side-by-side maps here, so this is between a comparison of two different geographic locations, but of the same topic. What we can also do is compare two different topics, but of the same geographic location. So let's go ahead and try that out. How about let's return back to New York City for the moment, and go back to 500 Grand Concourse. And for our survey, let's change it up this time and look at median income. Yeah, why not? So we go to the income tab here, and we'll scroll down a bit to find median household income adjusted for inflation. And here we see a comparison. And one really cool thing about Social Explorer is, as you can see, as my mouse is kind of scrolling across the map on the right-hand side, it highlights the census tract on the left-hand side, so you can actually see the comparison visually that way. And also on the right-hand side, you get this kind of tabbed out to get more information. So let's see here. For the New York County census tract 158.01, looks like the what's the median household income? It's around $136,378 for and for the population 25 years and over. That's about 3,526 of them, right? Is that right?
Yeah, and also you see that's 83% of the population surveyed.
Right.
So we can compare that then to, if we go up here to the Bronx where we are, which is this one.
Much smaller percentage.
Smaller percentage, as well as a smaller
with purchase degree
income. So this, I mean, as you start to play around with the comparisons, you start to ask questions, right? Like none of these on the face of them are profound. It's what what you start to notice when you dig around through these, right?
And I think this is a great way of talking about possible correlations through visualization. So this is kind of the more geographic side by side between two different topics. Why don't we also? I think we could also now that we've gotten this down, we can look at the swipe. Function. So the swipe function is great if we want to look at kind of a time lapse. So let's go to the bottom again to the map layout and choose swipe this time. We can actually even see it here if we wanted to kind of mouse over the swipe bar. As you can see on the right hand side, this is the median household income. If you swipe back to the swipe the bar back to the right, now we get the bachelor's degree, and we can kind of see kind of the comparison and the color changes.
I'm going to do something to make it just a little clearer, which is let's make these colors really different.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Actually, no, that's a little confusing with the full spectrum. Let's do it as density in this sort of pinkish reddish color.
Okay.
So
should we do it on the other side too, or
no? This way you can see how they compare a bit.
I think there's a lot of overlap between median household income and bachelor's degree and more, which I think in sociology, there's quite a bit of literature on that. So that's not.
What else can we do with the swipe feature? So this is two different variables.
Right. So let's let's go back to, I guess, looking at education only and dial back the year to 1990, let's say. So let's go back to education here on
education
in bachelor's degree or more.
All right, so the same geography, but now we're going back in time.
Yes.
Okay. So if we go back to 1990, over here we're looking at bachelor's degree, 25-year-olds or over with bachelor's degrees. So we want the same thing here, bachelor's degree or more.
Actually, but I think one thing to be careful of, because each survey year is different, so they might have a different measurement. So that's one thing to be careful of. So I think when we go back to 1980, we don't get that bachelor's degree or more.
The census just wasn't asking for it.
Exactly. So
all they wanted to know is if you had some college. Right. So if students, depending on the year they're looking at, they're going to have to decide what they can track.
Right.
Which is actually a really good experience, I think, in terms of understanding that data comes from somewhere.
Right.
That you can't just accept it automatically. You have to actually deal with how it was produced.
Right. And the type of measurements, etc.
All right. So let's look. So we've got on the left side today, on the right side 1990, and we're comparing. I'm actually gonna make these the same.
I was
silly idea.
Also, can we do it from a left to right so that we have the past
right
on the left? So we can. There's a really cool feature here that if we just click swap maps, so that we have the past on the left, and
now Western readers can follow what we're doing.
Exactly.
All right. So this shows 1990. This is where the highest density of people with bachelor's degrees, and it says what the density was. Right. So if we pick some place in Harlem, tract 208, we see out of the folks surveyed, only 5% have bachelor's degrees in 1990. If we swipe back and stay in the same, we see a much higher percentage in 208, 40%. So a huge increase in both the numbers surveyed, but also in the percentage that we're getting here.
Right.
So we could dig a bit more into the details about that if we were doing some research on the difference in economics of the degree in that period of time. This kind of thing could point us towards some interesting patterns.
Right.
And that's one of the cool features about the swipe through. The truth is, it's a way to notice things.
Yes,
right?
It is.
It's a way to notice the patterns.
It's also a fun way to notice things too, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I think so far we've looked at still exploring the maps, but we've done little to talk about, creating a project out of this. So
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about what to do. We've basically just been playing, right?
Right.
And I think that's the first thing to do with students is to help them figure out how to play with this and to see what it can do. But then from there, you want to make something out of it. So what can students do in terms of projects using this kind of work? The feature that's I think best for helping students actually produce something out of this is the tell a story feature. So if we click on this little corner down here, it'll prompt us, you're about to start telling a story. So a story is basically a slideshow that you're making out of these interactive maps. One thing about the slideshow is that it's still interactive. So you can still jump in and play with it. It's not just a static slide of the map, but it's a pre-made map that you've sort of set the terms on and published that way. So it's just like a New York Times infographic kind of thing.
Right.
Same New York Times uses this.
Right. Actually, I was just going to say,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
So on the left here, you can see the slides. At the moment, there's only one slide, but we could make more, and we will. But students would decide on the map. They can still interact with it here, just the same as you could before. You can still change the variables and play around with it, so you're not set in stone once you get here. But you put a title on it, test title. You put some text here, text, which I'll just give you a few of those so you can see what it'll look like. And you can also embed media here. So let's say if we were talking about bachelor's degrees and I wanted to link out to a New York Times article about trends in bachelor's degrees, then I could link to text right here. If there was a chart that I wanted to show that showed this data in a different way, I could link it there, a podcast or a video. All of these things I could attach to this map.
Right.
And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. We've got the Social Explorer actually has some finished products that I can show you so you can see what it's like.
Right.
But so I've got this one. Let's say I wanted to create a few more. I want a single map as well of the same area that tracks unemployment, maybe. Sure.
Yeah.
Unemployment from 1990. Let's say the population who are 16 years or over who are unemployed. Let's say this is part of the story that I'm telling, right? All hypothetical. But as students put together different series of different kinds of maps and data visualization, it creates an argument using the data, and they can actually explain that argument in the content frame to go along with it to help the reader understand what's going on. So it creates an interesting balance and a sort of narrative of its own. These things can then, of course, be swapped very easily, so you can move the slides around. Again, it's not set in stone. This is a space where you can storyboard, which I think adds some really cool features. Let's just add one more for fun. There's also charts, which we're not going to talk about today. They're actually a bit difficult to work with, but it's a feature to explore if you decide you want to do some more advanced stuff. And let's say we also had a swipe in here, and I'm not even going to change the variables on that for right now.
Right.
So we've got these three, and I'll show you what it looks like. So this is the most basic. You can see here's the one that I put some test text on. The text appears on the side next to the maps, which you can interact with. And it just moves through the storyboard that you've created. A really cool way to lay out the information and to turn these maps into something that you can then publish on a website, on a WordPress site. You can email them and share them with people. It can become its own digital project, a born digital project, which is really cool. So let me show you what they look like in their final version. This is Social Explorer's blog. We'll give you the full link, but it's just socialexplorer.com/blog. We'll get right there.
Yeah.
And the developers have put together some of these to basically to show you how it works. So May 14th, they did one for Bike to Work Week. Again, it's sort of a random topic, but you can imagine this on whatever topic would be relevant to your class. So this shows you what it looks like when it's embedded within a page. Let's go to full screen so you can really get the idea. Now, one thing I want to say is, though this is made by folks at Social Explorer, all of these are features that you could do.
Right.
All of this is really plug and play, direct, easy stuff. Any student who has Facebook really could do this.
Right. And I think we've covered everything that they did here in terms of the tools that they used. We've covered it in this in this recording. So
absolutely.
yeah.
So there will be a title page. Student can pick an image for that.
Right.
You press start, and here's our first map. Right. It provides us text that describes what we're looking at here. It tells us how to use it. This can be a good model for students to look at to understand how they should engage with the reader through this text. They've given us some data here. We can play around with it. You can also see here they've embedded an image for us to look at, which draws our attention to some feature in the map. They've created this screenshot and put that in there so that the reader will know. You can click through to the next one. They did a swipe, it looks like, and they've embedded different kind of media here. So here's a chart that they made that they embedded within. And here is a clip, video clip it looks like, although it's not loading right now. It's possible that link's dead, which happens. So something to talk about with students is to make sure that if they're linking to YouTube, that it's on their own account, so that they can actually be sure it will always be there, to avoid the phenomenon of link rot. So
is that a real term?
That's a real term.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
DC Metro Map is embedded in here. But you see how by curating the maps, by picking which ones they're going to do, by linking them in an order that they've decided in advance, by including multimedia within the text, they've created an interactive story that you can then go through. It has its own kind of argument. It has its own kind of interactive features. And I think we could imagine this being used for research-based projects in a lot of different kinds of classes, really.
And I think one of the cool things about Social Explorer is it challenges the student to engage in information in different ways, from the map to maybe videos and images to text, also being able to explain what they're seeing and playing around with. So that's a really, really cool thing about Social Explorer in that, and from a pedagogical standpoint. I think one thing I just want to add is the importance of being able to share the project. So if we go to the top right corner here, actually let's go. Can we go back to our test project? When we're creating the storyboard, there's this button right here that says share, and we can either link this project to somebody else. This will be the more finalized version. But if we click collaborate, for instance, Andrew can share with me. Actually, Tiquan.
That's right.
Yeah, that one at Grad Center. There we go. So here, Andrew can share collaborate with this project. Will actually invite me to the collaborate this project, and so now I can, if I logged onto my account, I can fool around with Social Explorer as well. And then the other thing that Andrew was mentioning was the embed feature, where you just can grab the code and and have the students incorporate that into their e-portfolios or their websites and blogs. So there's a lot of this can really help the student develop a portfolio of their own work in the long run. I think one thing to note here is that Social Explorer does take a little time to explore. It is very self-explanatory for the most part. It's great user interface, but playing around with it might take a little bit of time, maybe an hour or so, just to get used to it. So so that's one thing to look out for. What else would you say about Social Explorer?
I mean, it's still a new tool to a lot of us.
Yes.
And I think the most important thing is to keep track of your experiments. be in touch with the Social Explorer team if you run into problems. I know that it's an app still in development, so they'll want to hear that back. But also reach out to us as quantitative fellows.
Definitely.
I think we want to hear what projects you're doing with this tool. We want to help you with those projects, come up with in-class activities to help them help you get through the sort of initial learning curve.
Right.
And also show them this video.
Right.
Honestly.
Absolutely.
If you are interested in working with a fellow on this tool, on getting to know it in person, you can email the Quant Fellows at quant@hostos.cuny.edu. I'd also recommend checking out the blog and looking around the projects, but really get yourself an account and just play around.
Right.
It's called Social Explorer for a reason.
Why is it called Social Explorer?
Because you explore the tool. Because you play around with what it can see. You really look to the data and see what it says to you. And I think there's so few opportunities when you really get to do that. And that's a valuable thing.
Right.
I think that's about it for us.
Yeah.
Be in touch.
Yes.
And thank you for watching this video.
Yeah, thank you so much.